The gentleman from Colorado is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I want to thank the distinguished gentleman and my friend from Pennsylvania for the customary 30 minutes, and I, too, ask unanimous consent to revise and extend my remarks and will yield myself such time as I may consume.
Without objection.
Mr. Speaker, as the gentleman said, today's rule provides for consideration of 3 bills. The first of those bills is H.R. 4366, the Military Construction, Veteran Affairs, and Related Agencies Appropriations Act of 2024. Now, Mr. Speaker, as you know, this bill typically is a bipartisan bill, one of the most bipartisan bills that we consider in the United States Congress. That is not the case this year. Why? Because House Republicans decided to inject extreme policy riders into this bill that threaten the freedoms of each and every American. They have kicked off appropriations season by doubling down on funding bills that endanger essential services. And just to speak frankly, this bill, nor any of the others that they will bring to the floor on the appropriations side, have any chance of becoming law. And my colleagues across the aisle know that. Today, they come to the floor and proudly tout a bill that would slash $1.3 billion from military construction. Not my number, their number. Programs that support quality of life services for members of the armed forces and their families. Democrats fight against cuts to vital programs that help the American people. Unfortunately, House Republicans are doing the opposite. We have seen this cycle many times, Mr. Speaker, throughout the last several months, 7 months. It has been hard to understand what my colleagues across the aisle truly want. At the beginning of this Congress, the other side of the aisle voted for a House rules package that promised an open rules process for amendments. Yet here we are debating another rule structured by Speaker McCarthy and Republican leadership. And now House Republicans threaten to shut down the government in order to fulfill an unpopular agenda full of far-right policy riders that undermine equal opportunity, restrict access to abortion, and more. We're going to hear a lot from my colleague, my friend on the other side of the aisle, about what he claims this bill will do. But it is important for the American people to understand 3 simple things. It cuts military construction by $1.3 billion. Think about the impact that will have, Mr. Speaker, on service members across the country. It funds no infrastructure backlog for the Department of Defense. Mr. Speaker, we have a $100 billion infrastructure backlog in the Department of Defense. Installations across the world, across the country, in our districts. The President asked for $2 billion to start to address that backlog. House Republicans said no. How much did they give? 0. And finally, the bill does nothing to address toxic PFAS contamination. Not a thing. Last year, House Democrats, under President Biden's leadership, appropriated $200 million towards PFAS remediation to address the toxic chemicals that are literally killing people across the country. This bill appropriates how much? None. Those are the facts. If that weren't enough, as the gentleman said, we're considering 2 other bills today. Now, the American people watching this might think that perhaps House Republicans would decide to bring a bill to the floor to lower costs, address inflation, try to reduce the cost of health care, grow the middle class, build safer communities, address school safety. No. House Republicans have declined to put any of those bills on the floor. Instead, what are we left with? Hearings and bills on gas stoves, and today, bills on the lesser prairie chicken and the northern long-eared bat. That's what we're here to debate, Mr. Speaker. I think the American people would be deeply disappointed at the choice and priorities that House Republicans are pursuing. Let's get back to the core issues at hand. Let's negotiate in good faith. Let's do the people's business. With that, Mr. Speaker, I'll reserve.
The gentleman reserves.